Good morning.
Yeah, this fails.
Good morning. I hate to make you stop networking, but I'm going to. So I'm Leslie Scheller. Know lots of folks in this room. Happy to see some new faces. Always exciting. Welcome to the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. Most of you guys just know us at ACEnet. This is our 5th annual Women in Business Conference. And we're going to have a really exciting day. But you know, it's still ACEnet culture. So lots of time for networking. A lot of times for you to connect with old friends and probably some new faces in the room. We have an incredible amount of sponsors that we're going to talk about here a little bit later in the agenda. I hope people have been enjoying some of the breakfast goodies we have out on the table. So thank you, Jane, from Dirty Grove Coffee. Thank you, Snowville Creamery. I think Victoria's on her way, so we'll probably see her at some point. Another credentialed women-owned business. And then we have some new friends, too, who have provided some breakfast pastries for us. So, Flour and Time. Larry, is she in the room?
Yep, Keely's.
There you are. I haven't been able to put a face to a name yet. So thank you. Thanks so much. And, you know, that's what this day is all about. Folks who have been in business for a while. So a lot of you established women entrepreneurs. We so appreciate your generosity to share your journey, to share your resources, to connect with one another, and to really welcome more people who are on this, maybe newly on this journey of either thinking about starting a business or maybe already in the launch in that first year, first 2 years of operations. So lots of resources, lots of people to thank. You've probably met Larry Fisher, the executive director of ACEnet. I know that Sherry, because she's at the registration desk. She is, I don't know, is Girl Friday too pejorative these days? You know, it demonstrates how ancient I am to use language like that. But Sherry keeps us all on track. And then we have Avery, and we have Tessa with us as well from the ACEnet staff. If you're unfamiliar with some of our newer staff members at ACEnet, you can always visit the website and read everyone's bio and look at their lovely pictures. But you get to see some of them in person today. So Avery will be here throughout the day also taking photographs. And then there's some folks who are missing today because they're doing other regional work in Huntington, West Virginia. So we're missing Adam, we're missing Brianna, but I know Larry's going to be Facebook Live, videoing some of our activity today. So if you have friends who couldn't join us in person, we'll have some of that information obviously archived as well. And then the other big shout out to somebody who is event planner extraordinaire is Megan Loveland on our staff. So Megan works remotely, although most people don't even know that because they're in such constant communication with Megan. But she's really the glue that puts this whole conference together and puts many things together at ACEnet. You know, she keeps me on track, I know that. And tries to keep Larry on track. I don't know if she's always as successful as she is with me. So we are so happy to have you here today. We'll talk about our sponsors and our trade show folks here throughout the day. I know you've had some opportunity to network already, but I want to make sure that first and foremost, we introduce our welcomer from Hocking College, and that's Hannah Guada. She's going to come up and take over the mic. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite figure out some of the photographs, but I know you will paint a beautiful picture. to welcome us here at Hocking. So thanks so much. This is the 5th year we've been hosted by Hocking, so we're deeply appreciative of that as well.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. On behalf of Hocking College and the President, Dr. Young, welcome, welcome, welcome. And it's always a pleasure to have Appalachia or Appalachia. I'm sorry, I'm new, so I'm still learning the word, how it's pronounced, but for me it's Appalachia. It's always a pleasure to host you here. A little bit about who I am. So I'm the Vice President for Student Life and several other things. And if I tell you how many things, you'll be like, wow, how does she do it? I just get it done, right? You hire really great people, and that's one of the things you learn in your businesses, how to hire really great people that make you shine. And that's one of the secrets to that. So my name is Guada. I am originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and we hear that accent, so yes. And you're asking yourself, how does a little person from a small country, it's the last Caribbean island on the Caribbean belt, right next door to Venezuela, how did I find myself here in rural America? So I came here several years ago, and I went to New York City. From New York City, I went to Houston. From Houston, I was recruited to come here. And you probably want to know, why would she even come to Appalachia, right? I came, I thought, it reminded me of home first and foremost. And I thought that I can contribute all the skills I've learned throughout my whole life to young people so that they can advance in their lives and go forward. So it would be, you're aware of Hocking. So Hocking have a slew of offerings, and I'm sure you've heard all of it before, but I'm going to do something different today. I never take a mind without sharing a lesson, so that's what I'm going to do with you today. Share some lessons from my life, actually from my history. And we're all women businesses here, and I want to start back with my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was from Venezuela. She was from an area called the Guada tribes. And during the late 1800s, there was a lot of conflict in Venezuela. Somehow it seems like those Spanish people could never get it together. There's always some internal conflict, right? And so it was a hard time for them. And they decided, my grandmother and my great-grandmother and her husband decided they were going to cross the ocean from Venezuela to Trinidad. So that's how my family ended up there. And that was a place of a valley, right? It's much like some of your businesses, and sometimes you hit a valley, and that's just the way the business actually goes. You have a dip, and then you go back up to a peak, and back down. So that's the mental, the peaks and valleys of our lives. So they hit a valley, and they went to Trinidad and ended up owning a cocoa plantation. So things were going really well for them and their children and their families. And then several droughts hit. Guess what? There goes their crops. Something that happens in our businesses, right? Something happens and all of a sudden it feels devastating. And what happened after that, after the cocoa plantation failed? The children dispersed. They had 13 children. So the children dispersed across Trinidad, all over. So my grandmother ended up in Port Spain, which is the capital. And I always hear about my great-grandmother. I never heard much about my great-grandfather. All I knew, he was really tall, he couldn't get shoes, and they had to make shoes for him. I didn't know anything else but that, right? But what happened was my grandmother and her sister, they joined forces together, became hairstylists, and they became business owners as well. So they started one of the first taxi services in Trinidad and Tobago. They also went and did market. My grandmother was a fishmonger. She used to sell fish. And that was doing really well. And then she met this man that she thought was going to be her love of her life. She ended up getting pregnant for him, and then found out he was married. Right? So a really older woman, and he tried to explain that the marriage didn't work. She didn't care. She shut him off. Guess what? Life is a little bit devastating. She's back down in the valley. Right? Then she continued building her business, and then things started going well for her. So she was back up at the peak, right? And what did that teach her? And teach my mother? It's about resilience. Things may happen, knock you down, but you have to find a way to get things up. And also teaches us about resilience, because life sometimes knocked the wind out of us. The same way COVID came along and probably knocked the wind out of many of your businesses. But how do you build your way out of that? You understand where you are, you embrace it, and you begin to network, find other people, you do research, you read, and find ways to find yourself out of that valley, and you keep plugging away at it. Some people fall apart, some people leave the business and go do something else, but sometimes they come back, right? So embrace your valley experience, but it doesn't mean you have to stay there. Reach out for resources, places like ACEnet. For other areas, there are other business organizations that's in the area, maybe in Columbus, where you can meet with other women, men, business owners who can help you. So then here comes my mama. She became a hairstylist as well. And things were going well, and then what happened? There was another recession in Trinidad and Tobago. She's out of work. People are not doing their hair as much as they used to. But my mom was wise. She decided to go get training, very similar to a Hocking college, a community college. She went and got trained to become a cook. She became a cook now. She went to work for the hospital system in Trinidad and Tobago, so she was able to sustain her living. Yes, she could have said, I want the freedom to do my own business, but she knew she had children to feed, right? So she did that. She went ahead and she started working, but guess what? In her blood, we have the entrepreneurial spirit in her blood, because both her mother and father, they were both entrepreneurs. But she continued doing businesses on the side. How did I come into the play? At 9 years old, I started making cookies and walking around the neighborhood selling cookies. And I enjoyed that. My mother was always doing some sort of entrepreneurial business. But the thing about it is, sometimes you're married to the wrong person. My dad found out that I was selling cookies around the neighborhood. He was an airplane mechanic. So for him, he had a certain level of expectation, right? He didn't want his daughter walking around selling cookies. I overheard him, thought that something's wrong with that, right? So selling is bad. And I got a complex with regards to that, because now here it is, I should be selling, so I stopped. But guess what? It's in the blood, right? Eventually, I started my own business at 16 with my brother, which was very, very successful. And I stopped that because I came to the United States to come to school. So I left and I came to the United States. But guess what? The entrepreneurial spirit was still in my blood. So I was in my own valleys as well, because I was always wanting to do business. So I did several multi-level businesses. It didn't necessarily work for me. Nothing wrong with it. It just didn't work for me. But while I was in Houston, I started my own business. So I started my baking business out of my own kitchen, which was very, very successful. So what I'm trying to share with you is, sometimes in your businesses, there are peaks and there are valleys. And it's okay. Just continue plugging away, because the lesson out of it all is to be resilient, right? Be creative. And creativity leads to innovation. Because some of you are going to create brand new products, brand new systems of doing things, brand new services that do not exist today. But you have to keep plugging away. So I want to encourage you to be brave. Right? What do you want to do? First of all, be brave. And I want you to be brilliant. It's okay for people to think you're crazy, because your crazy could be a new innovation later on. Right? So be brave, be resilient, take care of yourselves. Right? You have to put self-care in there, because if not, where does the creativity come from if you're burnt out? You need to be brave. You need to take care of yourselves. And I definitely want to hear back from each and every one of you. I'm going to leave my cards. I'll be excited to hear from you. And I'm always available to anyone who may need some assistance and some guidance, or even if you want a little cheerleader. I'm always available for cheerleader. Ask Amy. Amy's my assistant there, and she knows I'm always cheerleading our students, because it's all about that. Sometimes we need cheerleaders, and some of us don't always have cheerleaders when you be a champion in your life. So that is my story for today. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your attention, and all the best to each and every one of you.
Thank you so much. And again, great appreciation for Hocking and making the lodge available, and all the staff, to everyone who is helping put the food together, who helped with the technology. We appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, so So what's next? Well, if you open up your program, we're going to do some highlights of what's